Their marriage had been sealed with contracts and handshakes, not vows of love. She glided through the rooms like a perfectly placed ornament, her laughter light but distant, her eyes often drifting to her phone when she thought no one watched. The staff knew their place instinctively, bow low. Speak only when addressed, never meet the master's gaze. Loyalty was currency here, hesitation could cost a tongue, weakness a life. Appearances were everything, flawless, unblemished, unbreakable. Meals arrived precisely on schedule. Bibimbap arranged like art, Hanwoo beef grilled to exacting standards. Evenings hummed with quiet efficiency, lieutenants briefing in hushed tones, security feeds flickering on hidden monitors, and among them moved Ayahia. She had arrived 6 months earlier, recommended through a discreet agency that placed foreign domestic workers in high-end households. From Ghana, her skin a rich, deep brown that caught the light like polished ebony, her hair neatly braided under a simple cap. She worked with quiet precision, folding imported silk sheets into perfect corners, preparing late-night ramyun a samjiatong when the master returned from meetings, dusting shelves that held artifacts worth more than her family's home in Accra. Every paycheck she wired money back, enough to keep her younger siblings in school, her mother's market stall stocked. The other staff spoke around her in rapid Korean, assuming her careful accented responses meant limited understanding. That African girl is diligent enough, they'd murmur, but slow with the language, yet subtle cracks hinted at more. Aisha paused sometimes at the television when news of syndicate arrests flashed across the screen, her eyes lingering on faces and names. She caught fragments of kitchen gossip, words like Victor Kim or Summit, and her fingers would tighten briefly on a dishcloth before resuming their rhythm. Loud voices made her flinch, a flicker of old shadows crossing her face, quickly hidden behind polite neutrality. She was efficient, polite, utterly invisible, just another pair of hands keeping the fortress running. In this perfectly controlled world, everything changed the night Minnie decided to come home early. The penthouse had always been a fortress of order, until the night its master returned unannounced, and the quietest person in the house became the only one who mattered. Suspicion had been gnawing at Kang Minyai for weeks, like a splinter buried deep, invisible but impossible to ignore. Sua's late nights, her excuses polished smooth as river stones, the way her phone now lived face down on tables. Tonight he canceled a crucial meeting with port smugglers and drove himself home. No driver, no entourage. The private elevator climbed in silence, depositing him into the penthouse like a ghost returning to his own grave. The staff felt the shift immediately. A security guard straightened too quickly. The chef's knife paused mid-chop. Whispers rippled through the kitchen in rapid Korean. That's early. The boss never comes home before 2. Sua's personal attendant, G1, smirked as she passed Aihi in the hallway, carrying fresh linens. Better stay out of sight tonight, African girl, she muttered. Loud enough to carry. You wouldn't understand what's happening anyway. Aisha kept folding, head down, hands steady, but inside she filed it away. Another slight, another assumption that her careful Korean and quiet demeanor meant ignorance. They all did it, the lieutenants in the security room, laughing over Saju, that Ghanaian one. She smiles too much. Probably doesn't even know what city she's in. She heard everything, remembered everything. Meunier moved through the corridors like smoke, silent, deliberate. His polished shoes made no sound on the heated marble. He was halfway to the master wing when a figure stepped from the shadowed alcove near the pantry. A hand closed around his wrist, warm, firm, unafraid. Aisha. Her eyes met, his dark, unflinching, holding secrets like deep wells. Before he could react, she leaned in, her breath brushing his ear. Be quiet, she whispered, please. The words were pure soul dialect, flawless, urgent, laced with the cadence of someone born to these streets. Not the careful, accented Korean she used with staff. This was different, real. Min-yi froze. Shock rippled through him like cold water. Who? She tugged him sideways into the narrow service corridor, pulling the panel closed behind them, just as laughter spilled from the master bedroom. Sua's laughter, light, intimate, tangled with a deeper male voice that sent ice through Minyi's veins. Through the thin gap in the panel they watched. Sua emerged first, hair tousled, silk robe slipping from one shoulder. Behind her, Victor Kim, heir to the rival White Tiger Syndicate. His arms circled her waist possessively, fingers tracing the curve of her hip. Aisa's grip on Minyi's wrist tightened, not in fear but warning. Stay still, stay silent. In the dim corridor, pressed close in the confined space, their breathing synced. His world tilted. The invisible maid had just pulled the black dragon himself into hiding, and from the shadows they listened as the true betrayal began to unfold. The hidden pair now watched, and the quietest person in the house held the deadliest secret of all. Pressed together in the narrow service corridor, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and lingering jasmine from Sua's perfume, Minye and Ashia watched through the sliver of open panel. Time stretched thin, like a blade held to throat. Sua's voice drifted out first, low, conspiratorial, laced with excitement she never showed her husband. The summit is perfect, Victor. All the old men in one room. Your men handle the guards, and Minier, well, he won't see it coming. Victor's laugh was dark velvet. The black dragon falls and white tiger rises. With you at my side, the merger is seamless. Ports, clubs, politicians, everything. But we have to move fast. He's suspicious already. They spoke rapidly, details tumbling, routes for the hit team, bribes to specific lieutenants. The exact moment during the opening toast when poison would slip into Minier's glass. Names of contacts Minier recognized, men he trusted for years. Minier's body went rigid beside her, rage coiling like a serpent in his chest. He understood most of it, but some slang slipped past, underworld code from Victor's Busan roots. Then Aisha spoke, softly, precisely, in flawless Korean that carried the sharp edges of Seoul streets. They're using the East Service Tunnel for entry. Guards paid off by Uncle Park's nephew. The poison is tetrodotoxin, sourced from Jeju. Slow acting, looks like heart failure. And Victor just mentioned a backup shooter on the rooftop across from the venue. If the poison fails, a single shot during the chaos. Minion turned his head slowly, the dim light catching the shock in his eyes. Her words weren't just translation, they were analysis. She'd caught nuances he missed, connected dots he hadn't seen. The woman who folded his laundry, who bowed and vanished, had just dismantled the death plot in under a minute. The frozen moment shattered. His hand, still near hers from the pull into hiding, twitched. Breath caught in his throat. This wasn't the careful, accented Korean she used with staff. This was native, layered, dangerous, like a ghost stepping into solid form, a shadow suddenly casting its own light. "Who are you?" he whispered, voice rough. Aya met his gaze steadily. No flinch, no apology. "Someone who listens," she said simply, "and remembers." Outside the panel, Sua and Victor moved toward the bedroom door, voices fading into intimate murmurs. Safe for now. But inside the corridor, everything had shifted. Minyi studied her like a new variable in an equation he thought he'd solved. Valuable, unknown, potentially lethal. The invisible maid was gone. In her place stood a mystery wrapped in quiet strength. A woman who had just proven she could see through walls he'd built himself. The power dynamic tilted, irreversible. She was no longer beneath notice. She was a threat, an asset, a question he needed answered. Protection mode activated, she would be moved to a guest room under his direct watch, no longer just staff, but something far more dangerous and far more necessary. The days after the hidden corridor blurred into a pressure cooker, confined spaces, ticking clocks, stakes rising like floodwaters in Seoul's summer rain. Victor Kim's men began probing the edges of Black Dragon territory. A warehouse accidentally torched in Incheon, a low-level dealer vanishing from a club bathroom, whispers of White Tiger scouts spotted near the port. The syndicate summit loomed only 4 days away, a gathering of old bosses under fragile truce banners. One wrong move and alliances would shatter like cheap glass. Inside the penthouse, suspicion turned inward like a blade twisting in flesh. Tiho cornered Minye in the security room, voice low and gravel rough. "Boss, that maid, Aisha. She speaks like one of us, sees too much. How do we know she's not Victor's plant? Fire her, or let me handle it quietly." Uncle Park nodded gravely, eyes narrowing behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Foreigners don't just appear with skills like that. Check her background deeper." Even Sua played her part flawlessly, feigning wide-eyed concern over breakfast Hanjung-sik. "Minyaya, darling, are you sure about keeping her so close?" "She is different. I worry for your safety." Her fingers brushed his hand, but her gaze flicked to Aya clearing plates, probing like a hidden needle. Aisha felt the weight of every stare. Questioned in the kitchen by staff who suddenly spoke slower, louder, as if her Korean might vanish. Watched by cameras she now knew were everywhere. Escorted, not guided, to her new guest room, luxurious but locked from outside. The old invisibility returned heavier now, not ignored, but suspected. The woman who saved the king was treated like a potential poison in his cup, yet Minyi refused to let her go. She stays close, he ordered, voice cutting through arguments like winter wind. Briefings moved to his private study, dimly lit, walls lined with ancient scrolls and modern screens. Late nights, maps spread across the desk, coffee cooling untouched. Aya sat across from him, analyzing Victor's patterns, suggesting countermeasures drawn from observations no one else caught. In those confined hours, cracks appeared. Minya's cold facade slipped, fingers drumming rare impatience, eyes lingering on her hands as she traced routes on paper. Loneliness seeped through the isolation of a man who trusted no one fully. Aisha's quiet pain surfaced in flashes, a tightened jaw at another accusation, a brief shadow, and old memories stirred. Reluctant connection sparked shared glances over strategy, a murmured good catch that felt like rare warmth. But the pressure built relentlessly. Then came the near miss. Minnie's car targeted on a rain-slicked highway home, gunfire shattering the night. An ambush barely survived, and the first real vulnerability cracked open between them. The ambush left scars deeper than the bullet graze on Minnie's arm, shattered glass littering the highway, the acrid smell of gunpowder clinging to their clothes like unwelcome ghosts. Back in the penthouse, the adrenaline ebbed slowly, leaving only exhaustion and the quiet hum of Seoul's distant traffic far below. It was past 3 in the morning when they found themselves in the kitchen, the one room that felt almost human amid the fortress of luxury. Aya moved with familiar grace, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. A whole young chicken, fresh ginseng roots thick as fingers, sticky rice, garlic cloves that released their sharp promise into the air. She prepared samjutang without being asked, the traditional soup meant for restoration, its broth simmering gently on the induction stove, filling the space with warm, earthy steam that softened the edges of the night. Minyi sat at the Marble Island, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, watching her in silence. She served 2 bowls, the chicken tender and fragrant, garnished with green onions sliced paper thin. They ate without rushing, the clink of spoons against porcelain the only sound for a long while. Rice, wine, and silence, an intimacy neither had expected. Then Ahia spoke, her voice low and steady, like a river finally breaking through stone. My brother Queen, he came to Korea first, chasing dreams of work, money to send home to Accra. He was only 22. She paused, stirring her broth, watching the ginseng float lazily. One night, gang crossfire in a club alley. Wrong place, wrong time. Bullets didn't care who he was. The news called it syndicate rivalry. I learned Korean from dramas at first, then books, then people on the streets when I arrived. I had to understand the world that took him from us. Had to find who gave the order. Her words hung in the steam, heavy with the weight of years carried alone. Pain etched faint lines around her eyes, memories surfacing like shadows in deep water. Her mother's wails echoing across the Atlantic, siblings looking to her for answers she didn't have. Minya set his spoon down, the bowl nearly empty. For the first time, his guarded expression cracked open, revealing the hollow spaces beneath. I know loss like that, he said quietly, voice roughened by more than the night's events. My parents, gone when I was 15. Rivals burned our home in Busan. I rose through the ashes, built this empire on their graves. But Sua, our marriage was paper and power, arranged by old men to bind families. No warmth, no choice, just duty. Their eyes met across the island, vulnerabilities laid bare like open wounds finally allowed air. Parallels woven through their stories. Pain forging strength, loss demanding answers, isolation in worlds that demanded too much. In that quiet kitchen, suspicion began to melt into understanding, respect deepening into something warmer, more dangerous. A bond neither had sought, but both now needed. She had just opened the door to her past, letting him glimpse the fire that fueled her quiet strength, when the present kicked it down. The past she came for walked straight into the present, and nothing would ever be the same. The summit loomed like a storm gathering over the Han River, but deeper shadows stirred within the penthouse walls. Ti-ho, ever vigilant, had grown restless with unanswered questions about Ayaya. While she showered after another late strategy session, he slipped into her guest room, quiet as a predator in tall grass. A quick search, drawers neat, belongings sparse. Then her phone left charging on the nightstand. A simple passcode override from Syndicate Tech. Photos scrolled by, family in Accra, market stalls bright with color. Then one stopped him cold, a younger Ahia beside a smiling young man, arm in arm, quaim. And in the background, blurred but unmistakable, the aftermath of a Seoul alley shootout. Police tape, blood on concrete. The date matched an old Black Dragon hit. Tiho's face hardened like cooling steel. He forwarded the image to himself and marched straight to Minion's office. "Boss," he said, slamming the phone on the desk. "She's been lying. That's her brother, killed in our crossfire years ago. She came here for blood, yours." Uncle Park arrived moments later, summoned by urgent text. The room thickened with accusation, air heavy as impending rain. Minnie stared at the photo, world tilting on its axis. Pieces snapped together like puzzle edges forced into place. Her flawless Korean, her flinches at violence, the way she analyzed threats with personal venom. The woman who saved him had once planned to end him. He summoned her. Aihia entered the office, sensing the chill immediately. Minye stood behind his desk, gun drawn and steady on her chest. Tiho flanked the door, hand on his own weapon. Uncle Park watched with grave silence. "Explain," Minye said, voice low thunder. "You came here to kill me." The bombshell hung between them, recontextualizing every moment, every shared glance, every late night plan. Audience eyes would widen, rewinding the story in their minds. The whispers, the soup, the trust built on hidden foundations. Ahia's breath caught, but she didn't crumble. Tears welled, tracing paths down her cheeks like rain on glass. "Yes," she whispered, "at first. Coin died because of a Black Dragon order. I thought it was you. I learned Korean, took the job, waited for the moment. But then I saw you. The man, not the monster. I couldn't do it. Never could." Raw pain cracked her voice, intimate, dangerous. The room pulsed with it, gun steady, hearts racing. Tiho snarled. "She's a threat, boss. End it. Old codes demand it." Uncle Park nodded. Loyalty first, Minnie's finger tightened on the trigger. Betrayal burned like acid in his veins. The empire he built demanded blood for deception. Yet her eyes, honest now, stripped bare, held the same loss he knew too well. Moral complexity froze the moment. Old world or new path, slowly, deliberately, Minya lowered the gun. "No," he said. "She stays. We need her. The real enemy is Victor." Phew! Trust shattered and reforged in fire. Alliance forged. Now they turned toward the real enemy together. The gun lowered, and with it, the old world crumbled like ash in Minya's hand. He turned to Ti-Ho and Uncle Park, voice steady as forged steel. "She's under my protection. Anyone touches her answers to me." Ti-Ho's jaw clenched, loyalty warring with doubt, but he bowed. Uncle Park's eyes narrowed, calculating new risks, yet he nodded too. The decision rippled outward. Staff whispered in corridors, lieutenants exchanged uneasy glances. Ayase, the foreign maid turned avenger, turned ally, was no longer suspect. She was claimed, roles redefined in a single breath. In the dimly lit study, war room now. Maps covered the mahogany desk like battle scars. Security feeds flickered on multiple screens, casting blue glows across their faces. 48 hours until the summit, a grand hotel ballroom where syndicate heads would gather under false peace, toasts masking knives. The real enemy crystallized fully: Victor Kim and Sua, their conspiracy a venomous web. Assassination for takeover, Sua's betrayal the key to merging empires under White Tiger control. Traitors within fed them intel. The poison and rooftop shooter were only the opening move. Minye and Aisha strategized side by side, synchronized like partners long acquainted. His resources, loyal enforcers, hidden accounts, surveillance networks, merged with her insights. Patterns in Victor's movements she'd pieced from overheard fragments, psychological weaknesses from studying Sua's habits. "Strike here first," she said, finger tracing a route. Sid, finger tracing a route. "Isolate Victor's men before they reach the east tunnel." He nodded, adding countermeasures. Decoy routes, jammed signals. Her street-honed intuition complemented his calculated power. Together, they were formidable, unbreakable. In quiet moments between plans, personal stakes sharpened like blades. This wasn't survival alone. For Asha, justice for Quaim, redemption from vengeance that nearly consumed her. For Minye, dismantling the isolation of his throne, claiming a legacy built on choice, not just duty. And beneath it all, something unspoken bloomed. Love, fragile yet fierce, forged in shared scars. Their enemies never saw them coming. The grand hotel ballroom glittered like a jewel box under crystal chandeliers. Syndicate heads in tailored suits, toasts raised in fragile harmony, the air thick with cigar smoke and veiled threats. Minnie entered first, impeccable as always, Aya at his side in a simple black hanbok-inspired gown that hugged her curves like midnight silk. No longer the maid, his partner. Whispers followed them, shock rippling through the room like wind over water. Victor Kim stood near the head table, smirking beside Sua, her hand possessive on his arm. The trap was set. It sprang at 9:15 sharp. Glasses clinked for the opening toast. Poison slipped into Minnie's cup. Tetradododaxin, just as planned. But Aisha's hand intercepted smoothly, switching glasses with a flick no one noticed. Victor's eyes narrowed. Too late. Chaos erupted. East tunnel doors burst open. Victor's men, masked, armed, stormed in. Gunfire shattered crystal. Screams echoed off marble walls. Rapid fire. Bodies dropped. Bodies dropped. Black Dragon enforcers countered. Prepped, positioned. Minyai drew his pistol, shot. One down, two. Aisha moved like Shadow Unleashed. Graceful, lethal. She disarmed a rushing attacker with a twist learned from Soul's back alleys, knee to groin, elbow to throat. He crumpled. Another charge. She sidestepped, used his momentum to slam him into a table. Glass exploded. Montage of threats, rooftop shooter sighted, jammed by their signal disruptor. Bribed guards turned, loyalty bought back higher. Traitors exposed mid-fight. Uncle Park's nephew caught relaying positions taken down by T-Ho's brutal efficiency. Victor roared orders from the dais. Sua beside him, face pale but defiant. Ayahiha advanced through the fray. Bullets whined past. She vaulted a fallen chair, grabbed a dropped knife. The skills they mocked, the quiet observations, the hidden strength, now commanded the room. She reached Victor first. He laughed, gun raised. The maid, you think you belong here. Aya's eyes blazed. I belong wherever justice demands. They clashed, fast, brutal. Victor swung, powerful, trained. She ducked, struck low pressure points from years of survival instinct. He staggered. She pressed, kicked to knee, palm to nose, blood sprayed. You ordered the hit on my brother, she hissed. Quaim, innocent, caught in your war, Victor spat blood. Collateral, business, no more. She disarmed him, wrist lock, gun clattering away, knife at his throat. The room stilled around them. Syndicate heads watched, breaths held. But sacrifice came swift. T-Ho shoved Minyi aside as a hidden shooter fired from the balcony. Bullet meant for the boss. T-Ho took its center chest. T-Ho took its center chest. Fell heavy, blood pooling on marble. Minyi roared, rage and grief intertwined. He finished the shooter. One shot, clean. Sua tried to flee. Minyi caught her arm. It ends here. Public disgrace. He exposed everything. Recordings from Aisha's setups, confessions pulled in the chaos. Sua crumpled, mask shattered, political family ties severed in front of witnesses. Banished, broken. Victor knelt, defeated, justice poetic. Aisha revealed the old records. His direct order for Quaim's hit. Syndicate judgment swift. He was dragged away, empire crumbling, silence fell. Smoke cleared, bodies counted. 12 enemies down, one woman standing amid the wreckage. The underestimated maid, now architect of victory. The ballroom silent, except for distant sirens and labored breaths. Minyi emerged from the shadows, bloodied but unbroken. He crossed to Aisha, T-Ho's loss heavy in his eyes, their gazes locked. No words needed at first. Then he spoke, voice carrying for all to hear. Yea, you are my future, my queen, not by duty. By choice, dear love declared. Honor restored. Debt to Quaim paid in full. Family avenged. Adrenaline faded into catharsis. Bittersweet tears for the fallen, triumph in unity. The war was over. Dust settled. Survivors stood. A new world emerged from the old, forged in fire, bound by unbreakable alliance. Their story was just beginning. Dawn broke over Seoul like a slow exhale, soft light spilling across the hotel ballroom's wreckage. Shattered crystal glittering on blood-stained marble, overturned tables like fallen soldiers, the faint metallic tang of gunfire lingering in the air. Medics moved among the wounded. Bodies of the fallen were covered with quiet respect. Tiho's loss weighed heaviest, a loyal brother in arms, his sacrifice the steepest price of victory. Minyi knelt beside him one last time, hand on the enforcer's still chest, grief carving deeper lines into his face. Aya stood nearby, her gown torn but posture unbroken, tears tracing silent paths for the man who had doubted her yet died protecting them all. The syndicate heads gathered in stunned clusters, alliances reshaped by the night's revelations. Victor's empire crumbled, arrests rippling outward, assets seized. Sua vanished into disgrace, her family's political shields shattered. Minye addressed them calmly. Operations would shift toward legitimacy. Ports legalized, clubs cleaned, old blood debts forgiven where possible. A new era, built on choice, not just fear. Back at the penthouse, windows thrown open for the first time in years, fresh air chased away stale shadows. Cleanup was methodical, blood scrubbed from floors, broken vases replaced not with antiques but simple Ghanaian textiles Aisha chose. Bright Kent patterns weaving color into the stark luxury, the fortress felt less like a cage, more like a home emerging. Aisha stood on the balcony as the sun crested, no longer the invisible maid folding sheets in silence. She was seen, respected by lieutenants who now bowed deeper. Powerful in her quiet authority, indispensable at Minye's side, he joined her no longer the isolated king on a lonely throne. Scars from the night marked them both, but they stood transformed, equals forged in fire. Minye took her hand, pulling a simple ring from his pocket, platinum banded with black onyx, symbol of dragons tamed. Aisha, he said softly, voice rough with emotion, marry me, not for alliances, for us. For the future we build together. She smiled through tears, nodding. Yes, love acknowledged under the rising sun, mutual respect absolute, partnership sealed. Yet threats lingered, rival factions watching from shadows, unfinished vendettas whispering in dark corners. Their victory was a beginning, not an end. Larger missions awaited, justices yet to claim, worlds to bridge. The penthouse stood different now. Windows open, light pouring in, cultures blending in shared meals of jollof and kimchi. Kang Min-yae and Aisha stood on the balcony, no longer king and maid but equals. The city stretched before them, full of threats and possibilities. They had justice, they had each other. And that was enough for now. If you believe love can rise from betrayal, that the underestimated can claim their throne, subscribe now and comment where you're watching from. This story isn't over, it's only just saying to begin.